The sound of weeping haunted the narrow streets of Goshen, echoing through clay-brick homes and sun-baked alleys. Egypt's might was built upon the broken backs of the Hebrew people, who had multiplied greatly despite their suffering. Pharaoh, fearing they might rise in number and strength, issued a cruel decree. Every male child born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the Nile. In a small home tucked in the heart of Goshen, Jochebed, a Levite woman, gave birth to a son. When she looked into his eyes, she knew there was something extraordinary about him. Her heart ached with both joy and terror. For 3 months, she hid the baby. But when it became impossible to conceal him, she made a decision that would change history. She took a papyrus basket, coated it with tar and pitch, and placed her baby inside. With trembling hands and tear-streaked cheeks, she set him afloat on the Nile. "Yahweh, into your hands." His sister Miriam watched from the reeds. The tiny ark drifted into destiny. Down the river came the retinue of Pharaoh's daughter. Adorned in gold and linen, she bathed beneath the watchful eyes of guards. Then she saw it, a basket among the reeds. She ordered it brought to her. When she opened it, the child's cry pierced her heart. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said, but compassion overruled prejudice. "I will raise him as my son." She named him Moses, because I drew him out of the water. Irony had written a perfect plot twist. The very house that ordered Hebrew infants' deaths would now raise the one chosen to free them. Miriam approached courageously. "Shall I find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter agreed, and Jochebed, Moses' own mother, returned to care for him, paid to raise the son she gave up. Thus Moses was raised with 2 worlds beating in his chest, the royalty of Egypt and the cries of Israel. Years passed. Moses grew in the wisdom of Egypt, mathematics, war, politics, literature. He walked in palaces built by his people's pain. Though he bore the title of prince, he never forgot who he was. One day, he saw an Egyptian overseer viciously beating a Hebrew slave. Righteous fury overtook him. Looking both ways, he struck the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. The next day, 2 Hebrews argued, and one sneered. "Will you kill me too, like you killed the Egyptian?" The murder was no secret. Fear gripped Moses. Word reached Pharaoh, and a price was placed on his head. Moses fled. Through the burning sands, through wilderness and wind, he ran until he reached Midian, a land of shepherds. In Midian, Moses sat by a well. There he met Zipporah, daughter of Jethro, a priest. He defended her and her sisters from shepherds, and Jethro welcomed him into his home. Moses married Zipporah and became a shepherd. For 40 years, the once prince walked among sheep, watching stars, guiding flocks, and listening to the silence of exile. He thought he had been forgotten, but heaven had not forgotten him. One day, on Mount Horeb, Moses saw a bush ablaze, but not consumed. Curiosity drew him close, but a voice froze him in place. "Moses, Moses, here I am. Remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." God introduced himself, not as a stranger, but as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. "I have seen my people's misery. I have heard their cries. I have come down to rescue them, and I am sending you." Moses resisted. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? I will be with you," God said. "What if they don't believe me?" God gave him signs, a staff turning into a snake, a leprous hand healed. "But I am slow of speech." "Who made man's mouth?" thundered the Lord. "Go, and I will teach you." Still hesitant, Moses begged, and God allowed his brother Aaron to speak on his behalf. With a staff, a calling, and divine fire in his bones, Moses returned to Egypt. Pharaoh's court glittered with gold, but Moses entered with dust on his robe and eternity in his eyes. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Pharaoh scoffed. "Who is the Lord that I should obey him?" Moses warned him, but pride closed Pharaoh's heart. Then came the plagues, 10 acts of divine justice. Water turned to blood. Frogs swarmed. Gnats and flies tormented. Livestock perished. Boils broke out. Hail shattered the land. Locusts devoured all green. Darkness choked the sky for 3 days. And finally death. On the night of the 10th plague, God commanded the Hebrews to slaughter a lamb, mark their doorposts with its blood, and eat in haste. That night, death passed over every blood-marked home. But in the palaces of Egypt, including Pharaoh's, there was weeping. Every Egyptian firstborn died. Pharaoh broke. Go. Take your people. Take your flocks. Leave. The Hebrews fled, hearts pounding, eyes wide with wonder. Over 600,000 men, plus women and children, walked into freedom. They carried gold, silver, and the bones of Joseph. But Pharaoh changed his mind again. He mounted his chariot, summoned his army, and thundered after them. Israel stood trapped, the Red Sea before them, and Pharaoh behind. They cried out in fear. Were there no graves in Egypt? Moses stood before the sea and lifted his staff. Fear not. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. A wind roared. The sea split, forming walls of water on each side. The people walked through on dry ground. Pharaoh's army followed, but the waters returned. Chariots drowned. Horses perished. Not one of them survived. On the other side, Moses and Miriam led the people in worship. The Lord is my strength and my song. The horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. In the wilderness, the people cried for water and food, and God provided manna, quail, and water from a rock. Then, at Mount Sinai, the earth shook. Lightning flashed. Thunder rolled. Moses climbed the mountain alone and met with God. There, he received the 10 Commandments, etched in stone by the finger of God. But below, the people had built a golden calf. They danced and worshipped it, saying, "This is your God, O Israel." Moses descended in fury, smashed the tablets, and confronted them. God was angry enough to destroy them, but Moses interceded. "If you will not forgive them, blot me out of your book." Because of Moses' pleading, God relented, but the people would wander. Still, his glory filled the tabernacle, and he led them with fire by night and cloud by day. For 40 years, the Hebrews wandered. They grumbled, doubted, and rebelled. Even Moses stumbled. In frustration, he struck the rock instead of speaking to it, disobeying God. God said with sorrow, "Because you did not honor me as holy, you will not enter the promised land." Moses was heartbroken, but he did not protest. He continued to lead faithfully. Near the end, Moses gathered the tribes and reminded them of their history. He sang a song, spoke blessings, and encouraged them to remain faithful to Yahweh. He climbed Mount Nebo, overlooking the Jordan River and the land of Canaan. God showed him all of it, from Dan to Beersheba, the entire inheritance. "This is the land I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I have let you see it, but you shall not cross over." At 120 years old, his eyes were undimmed, his strength undiminished. Then, in a moment of divine intimacy, God took his servant, and he buried him in a valley in Moab, and no one knows where his grave is to this day. There has never arisen another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. He was a deliverer, a lawgiver, a shepherd, an intercessor, and a servant. He parted seas, stood between God and man, and led a nation of slaves to the edge of promise. His staff now lies still. His voice is silent, but his life still thunders through the ages. That one person surrendered to God can defy kings. That from weakness, strength can rise. That freedom is worth the fire. Many centuries later, atop another mountain, the Mount of Transfiguration, Moses stood again. This time, with Elijah speaking to Jesus, the Son of God, about his own upcoming exodus, the redemption of all humanity. Moses, the man who once longed to cross into the promised land, now stood in the true promise, in the presence of glory. He had finished the race. He had walked with God, and the fire that once burned in a bush now burns in every soul who dares to answer the call.